Polls have now closed and results are coming in from Nebraska's primary elections. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight for News 4 at 10. I'm Matt Breen.
And I'm Jessica Bowman. We'll start with the governor's race in Nebraska, where incumbent Republican Jim Pillen had 5 challengers for his party's nomination. The Associated Press declared Pillen the winner in this race shortly after polls closed at 8 p.m.
Pillen will now face Democrat Lynn Walls of Fremont, who defeated fellow Democrat Larry Marvin of Fremont. Rounding out the race will be the winner of the Legal Marijuana Now party primary between Rick Beard of Omaha and James Sharvat III of Valley. The AP hasn't declared a winner in that race. In Nebraska's Secretary of State's race, the incumbent Republican Bob Evnen faces a primary challenge from Scott Peterson. That race still too close to call tonight, with Peterson right now holding an 8-point advantage over Evnen.
The winner of that race will face the winner of the Democratic primary between Lee Simful of Lincoln and Sarah Slattery of Plattsmouth. Now, Slattery has a commanding lead in that race right now. You can see the number there on your screen.
Another major statewide race we're following tonight in Nebraska is the race for a full term in the United States Senate, where Republican Pete Ricketts is looking to keep his seat. Ricketts faced 4 challengers in that fight tonight. The Associated Press called the race in Ricketts' favor shortly after polls closed at 8 p.m. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, Cindy Burbank of Omaha has earned her party's nomination by beating fellow Democrat William Forbes of Paxton. Not pictured here is the independent candidate Dan Osborne, who also expects to be on the ballot in November.
All 3 of Nebraska's House seats are on the ballot today as well. Republican Congressman Mike Flood of Norfolk is running unopposed in District 1, so of course he automatically advances to the general election. He'll face Chris Bachmeyer of Lincoln, who defeated Eric Moyer of Lincoln in the Democratic primary. Nick Sandman of Lincoln is the Libertarian Party nominee in this race. Now, in House District 2, which covers the Omaha area, several Democrats are vying for this open seat. Incumbent Republican Don Bacon is not seeking re-election. The winner will face Republican Brinker Harding and Libertarian Eric Michael Foreman in November's general election. Let's look at House District 3. It covers most of northeast Nebraska. Incumbent Republican Adrian Smith facing a primary challenge tonight from David Hubner. Smith has the lead, but still too close to call at this time. But of course, we're continuing to follow in the newest numbers that are rolling into the KTIV newsroom. The winner will face Democrat Becky Kelly Still of South Sioux City and David Elst of Overton from the Legal Marijuana Now party.
There are also 2 contested sheriff's races we have our eye on in northeast Nebraska tonight, in Stanton and in Dakota counties. In Stanton County, 3 Republicans are facing off to replace the retiring sheriff Mike Unger. We're still awaiting results from Stanton County in this race at this hour. And in Dakota County, newly appointed Sheriff Tim Decker is up against Deputy Brian Furnow for a full 4-year term. Right now, unofficial results show Furnow has won that primary by more than 100 votes. Decker, by the way, was the one appointed by Dakota County commissioners to take the place of retiring Sheriff Chris Kleinberg.